Hi, I'm Myle. I'm 8 years old and I'm a MajorTim.space young ambassador for 2021 to 2022. I have some questions about you being a patron, your career, and some personal questions.
Great. Looking forward to it.
First of all, I have some questions about you being a patron. How long have you been a patron of MajorTim.space?
A little less than a year. MajorTim.space is a wonderful nonprofit organization that promotes STEM engagement. And another thing I like about it is it recognizes the contributions by women in space exploration. And so the earlier patron of MajorTim.space was Apollo 15 astronaut Al Worden, but he passed away really cool. He was, I got to meet him. He was a really funny guy, so much fun to be around, and just, could tell amazing stories, of course, right? When there were 3 of them in his crew of Apollo 15 that went to the moon, and the other 2 went down and walked on the moon, but he stayed in the command module and just orbited the moon. But how cool is that, right? But so when he passed away, Amelia asked me to be the patron to take his place. And so, I was very honored. How cool is that? Because again, I love this website. I think I first got started when she asked me to do a video. What does she call them? Not pump up the STEM. 10-minute star striking facts. That's right. And so I did one, and then I did it about Fred Hayes, who's Apollo 13 astronaut, who's become a good friend of mine, and I got to work with. And then she asked me to do another one. So I did one on the neutral buoyancy lab, which is the big swimming pool kind of thing where astronauts train for spacewalks. But
I think I've heard of
that. Yeah. But so I think it was last September or October, there was a Pump Up the STEM activity where children submitted videos about their interest in science, and we picked some winners from that, and they got to do some interviews of some of us that were judges, and we had a really nice video telecon with astronaut Nicole Stott was one of the people that was on the video, and a couple of other guests also. So anyway, I'm just really, and I'm proud to be the patron, and I'm really enjoying getting to work with Amelia and everyone else, and was really happy to see that you were picked as one of the young ambassadors.
Thank you. Why did you decide to become a patron?
Well, again, first of all, Amelia asked me, and like I said, I was very honored. How cool is it to get to replace the responsibility that an Apollo astronaut had, and I just I love what the organization is doing. Again, promoting STEM, especially in children, and I support it 100%. And that's really what a patron does. Is someone that supports an organization.
Okay. What can we do to promote MajorTim.space?
At least what maybe you can do this too. What I do is, like I said, I'm old enough. Sometimes kids should wait a little while before they get all over social media, but I'm on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram and LinkedIn and this new social media group called Clubhouse. And so far that you can only get into Clubhouse by invitation. But so one of the things I do is I post videos and pictures and stories on my social media profile about MajorTim.space, and I have thousands of followers, and so hopefully maybe some of those people that don't know about MajorTim.space will see some of my social media posts.
Okay. Um, what do you think can help develop children's interest in STEM?
So, excuse me. I think just seeing, how much fun science is. That I watched the video of you. I think it was you and your little brother when you were mixing something in a glass or a cup and watching the chemical reaction, and some amazing, really cool things happen that you're not expecting, and that's true of all kinds of STEM is more than just science. I mean, that's only the S, right? But um,
Science, engineering, and math.
yeah, exactly. Right. But math is cool too.
Yeah.
There's some really amazing things about math and numbers that just could blow your mind. And
Yeah.
engineering and but there's just so much cool stuff. It's so interesting, and we the whole world needs more STEM. That's where a lot of our new technology and inventions come from, is people who are working in STEM fields, and we need as much of that as we can get.
Okay. Now I have some questions about your career.
Okay.
I know you looked at NASA. What exactly did you do there?
So that's a good question, because a lot of people think when they hear that I worked at NASA for a long time that I was an engineer or scientist. I think they know I wasn't an astronaut, even though I've known almost all of them and got to work with them. Uh,
I've
but but I was in fact I was not in a STEM field in college. I was a business major, and it wasn't until I was almost through college, when NASA actually offered me a job, that I realized that, wow, NASA needs other people too, other than their scientists and engineers. They need business people, and to people to work with the money and things like that. And so that's actually what I did, was I bought things for NASA. Like I bought the space shuttles. And so, when I say I bought things, it wasn't like going to the store and picking up something off of the shelf. It was buying things that had to be designed and built and tested, that had never been built or before. And one of these things cost about $2 billion. So it was, again, when if somebody says, well, I bought things for NASA, well, yeah, but it was really hard buying some of those things that we bought. It wasn't, like I said, just going into a store and picking things up off the shelf. But I loved it. I got to buy. I was part of the team. It wasn't me by myself, that bought the space shuttle orbiter vehicles, and I helped buy the International Space Station. And for a couple of years, I worked on the team that was buying the Orion spacecraft that we're building now. So I got to, and in fact, the very first thing I worked on before buying the space shuttles, this was in 1979, was even before that, I got to buy the new spacesuits. They called them EMU, Extravehicular Mobility Unit, and they had spacesuits in the Apollo program, but this was a few years later, and they needed new spacesuits, and so that was actually getting to buy the new spacesuits was the first thing I did.
um, what was your favorite project to work on?
I think my favorite thing to work on was the space shuttle. I mean, how cool is that, right? And they were being built in California. I live in Texas, and the Johnson Space Center is in Texas, and California's I don't know, about a little over 1,000 miles away. So I would fly, on a plane out to California to meet with. We had meetings to talk about the design and changes that need to be made, and whether they were on schedule or not, and whether they were spending too much money or not, and so about once a month, I would fly out to California with usually a couple of other guys or women, and we would have a meeting to see how things were going. And so I started working on buying the space shuttle orbiter vehicles about 2 years before the first flight. And then the last flight was in 2011, and I kept working for another 6 years. So the entire space shuttle program, started after I got there and ended after before I left. So I was there for the entire shuttle program.
Was it hard to get a job at NASA?
It's a lot harder today than it was when I got a job there. Again, I could tell you it would take me 30 minutes to describe the story about how I got a job there. But again, and back then, this was the 1970s. This was a long time before you were born. You had to get a job. So NASA is part of the United States federal government. It's not a company, it's not a private company, corporation. It's part of the government. And so to get a job with the US government back then, any government agency, not just NASA, you had to take a test. And it depended on how well you did on that test, whether or not a government agency offered you a job. And there were different categories of the test. So it depended on how well you did in a certain category, which government organization, might want to hire you. Were you good with people, or were you good with math and numbers, or, all different kinds of talents. And so anyway, I just happened to do really, really well on the test that I took. And so when NASA got a list of names of the people who had taken the test, my name was up close to the top. And so they sent me a letter saying, "Hey, would you like to come interview for a job?" And I wasn't expecting that. And so I said, "Sure." And so anyway, a couple of months later, I was back in Houston, very close to where I grew up, working there.
What was in the test?
Well, I took that test over 45 years ago, so I don't really remember that well. But it was just questions, kind of like I think today's. You're too young to have taken one, but you might have heard of the SAT test that you take before college. Just all different kinds of questions. Science questions, math questions. There were probably spelling questions, and English, and all kinds of things. Again, because again, they were trying to not just give you a score; they were trying to figure out which areas of the test you were good at, so they could assign you to the right agency. And just I'll go ahead and tell you, there were 6 different categories, and so I got a score in all 6. I got 4 100s and 2 98s. So I almost aced the test. And so I guess that's why NASA offered me a job. But anyway, I guess I never really finished answering your question. Earlier you asked, how hard is it to get a job? And again, it's much harder today. I think there's more people who want to work there. And so I just had a bachelor's degree. I didn't have a master's degree or a PhD or anything like that. And today, 45 years later, if you wanted to do the job that I did back then, you pretty much need to get a master's degree, an MBA, Master's of Business Administration, to have a chance to get a job. But it's not like you don't have to be a genius, right? I mean, you just have to work hard and have some intelligence and have a good attitude, because they interview you. They want to know kind of what your personality is like, because at NASA, everything you do is part of a team. There's almost no one doing something. Even the astronauts, when they go to space, they're part of a crew, a team. And so that's one of the things they look for is somebody who has a good personality and gets along well with others and can work as part of a team, and being successful at what you're doing, whether it's being a successful student or for astronauts, most of them have already started working somewhere and being successful at whatever they're doing.
Okay. Would you recommend your job to a young person like myself?
Would I recommend a job at NASA to a young person like yourself?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, well, yeah. You have to be a little older, but absolutely. Yeah. I mean, it was such a wonderful place to work. I feel so lucky. Not everybody gets to have a job that they love and is interesting and exciting, and you get to work with really cool, smart, brave people like, certainly the astronauts are like that, but almost everyone who worked there was dedicated to what we were doing was important for the country and the world, and we had we wanted to complete the mission, and so we weren't worried about who gets the next promotion, and I'm gonna I need to beat this guy over here and do better than him. We helped each other. If we would bend over backwards, as they say, if someone we were working with needed some help. We didn't care if it might make them look better and they might have a better chance to get the next promotion or job. We all just wanted to accomplish the mission, whatever it took. And so, we have a visitor center, the Space Center Houston, which is right next to the Johnson Space Center, and that you can get on a tram, like a little bus kind of thing, and tour the Johnson Space Center. And so every once in a while I'd be walking to a meeting or something like that. I would be outside and I would see one of these trams go by, and I would think to myself, wow, those people paid $30 to get a ticket just to ride on that tram, just so they could look at this place where I'm working. They don't get to do anything or touch anything. They just look at it. And people pay money to do that, and I get to work there. So, that was really, I never got tired of that. Up to the very last day, I really loved and was thankful that I got to work at NASA.
What's NASA's main aim?
I'm sorry. So what was the question?
What's NASA's main aim?
Oh, well, to explore space for the good of mankind. Certainly America. The reason this was going way back into history. The reason NASA was created originally was because this was the early 1960s, and the Soviet Union, which has broken up now. Russia is still a main country that was involved in the Soviet Union, but we were, the Soviet Union and America were enemies, and we were threatening to fire nuclear bombs at each other, and the Russians were the first country to put a satellite in space, in Sputnik, and it was orbiting over, it would go over America, and Americans were scared that this enemy country was flying satellites over our country, and they were the first country to put a human in space, and so Americans were worried. And so President John Kennedy decided, well, hey, okay, so we're going to have a space race. We're going to win this space race. And since they had already beaten us at getting the first satellite into space and getting the first human into space, President Kennedy decided to change the game. For him, the game became, okay, well, let's see who can get the first people on the moon. And so that's really why NASA was formed back in 1958, was to win the space race and to show Russia, which again was one of our enemies, well, the Soviet Union, it was back then, that that we anything that they could do in space, America could do better. And so after we won the space race with getting 12 men to walk on the moon, and they never got anyone to the moon, and NASA became more involved and worried about not military war kind of things, but peace, and just developing new technologies and new inventions and things to help people, certainly again in America and all over the world, have better lives, like NASA cell phones and Wi-Fi. Some of those kind of things NASA helped develop that everyone in the world uses today.
Okay. Did you ever meet Neil Armstrong?
No, you know what? I've met almost every astronaut, including Buzz Aldrin and several of the other astronauts that walked on the moon. But I never met Neil. But I'm friends with his sons. I grew up. I grew up near the Johnson Space Center, where all of the astronauts lived and worked, and so their kids were my friends and classmates in middle school and high school and college, and I'm still friends with a whole lot of astronauts' kids, which is and so Rick and Mark Armstrong are his two sons, and I'm Facebook friends with both of them, and I saw Rick just a couple of years ago.
Okay.
But I never got to meet Neil.
Now I have some personal questions. What was the most exciting moment in your career?
If it's the most exciting moment, I had some other jobs that were more exciting, but the most exciting moment was when I got to see a space shuttle launch, and this was actually many years ago. It was 1986 or 87, and you could only get within about about 3 miles, so you're fairly far away, but it was amazing to see a space shuttle launch in person. The way with science, the way it works is light travels, so you see it first, and then it takes a little while for the sound waves to get there from 3 miles away. So you see it, and then you hear it, and then you actually feel it. The ground would it was so powerful that the ground would vibrate a little bit. There's actually a YouTube video of people about 3 miles away watching a space shuttle launch, and the car alarms start going off on the cars because the ground is shaking and the cars are shaking. It's setting off the car alarms. And so, I mean, it's not like an earthquake or anything, but you can actually feel the ground vibrating. So that was just an amazing moment for me.
Okay. What was it like when you were 8?
What's it like when you eat?
No. What was it like when you were 8?
Oh, when I was 8. Oh, you have to understand. I'm an old guy, and so I actually have to wear hearing aids. But you're doing great so far. I can understand almost everything you're saying. So what was it like when I was 8? Well, oh my gosh, this was there was I'm laughing. There was no such thing as cell phones or the internet or video games. The world was a lot different then. And so when I was 8, I just mostly for what I, obviously I went to to school, but otherwise I just went outside and played, baseball and football and rode my bicycle. My parents were not scientists, or neither of them. My mother did actually help with a NASA project once, but she didn't work for NASA, and so no one ever said anything. There was no such thing as STEM. That's all kind of new. So I was just a kid, who went outside and tried to find something to stay busy, because it's not like I would be sitting on my computer, or doing something on my phone, or doing science experiments, or playing on the internet, or there just was none of those things to do when I was 8 years old.
Hey, what was your favorite subject when you were little?
My favorite subject?
Yeah, at school.
So like I said, I think it was probably math or in English. Again, I knew from the time I was in high school that chemistry and biology were not. I mean, they were certainly interesting. It was kind of fun doing chemistry things in class and such. But I was just never that good at it. I was always better at math, and and again, I liked English. I liked to read. Um, and so I think that's why I was a business major, because even though science was interesting, I just wasn't that good at it, and I was good with math and numbers, and certainly when I ended up working at NASA, I did a lot of work with numbers, buying things worth billions of dollars, and negotiating contracts, and uh, that's another kind of interesting thing. I had been working at NASA for 9 years before we got personal computers. And so, we didn't have Excel spreadsheets or any kind of spreadsheets. They, hadn't even been invented yet. And so a lot of math was, with a pen and a paper. And, we did have calculators. Some of them, they were almost as big as typewriters in the early days, and now you can fit them in your pocket. But it was a much different world when I was 8 years old.
Do you have any other interests?
Oh gosh, yes, I do. So believe it or not, I love theater. I'm an actor. I am not a professional actor, but
Oh
I've
yeah,
been
I said that.
yeah. So I've been in 16 shows, musicals, comedies, Shakespeare. I love being on stage, and acting, and getting response from the audience. Live theater, there's all kinds of actors. Some people act on TV, and some people act in movies, and some people act in theater. Some do all of them. But I love live theater, and so I've done that since the 1980s. I did take a long break during my career at NASA, and when my two sons were growing up, I didn't have time to do theater. But I love, that's probably my second best love after NASA and space.
Um, do your children like space?
I shouldn't laugh, but I can't help. They do that just because I talk about it a lot, and I've taken them on tours of NASA and that kind of thing. But they're not like space nuts, or they never wanted to be astronauts. Like I said, one of them became was really interested in computers and programming, and is now a senior software engineer for a private company. And my other son is in graduate school. He was a history major, and so it's funny, which is kind of why I started laughing, is that, I worked at NASA, right? And it was very easy for me to take them on a tour, but they never asked. And it wasn't until my older son's girlfriend, who was interested in space, in fact, she just got her PhD in aeronautics and astronautics. She came to visit, and she asked, "Hey, Mr. Baker, would you take me on a tour of NASA?" And I said, "Sure." And so, my wife and two sons said, "Well, I guess we'll go along too." And so it wasn't until somebody outside my family asked to go on a tour before I took them all on a tour of Johnson Space Center one day. But they don't. My two sons don't love NASA and space as much as I do, and a lot of my friends. But they certainly know a lot about it, and or have some interest in it.
Okay, that was all my questions. Do you have any questions for me?
Oh, well, yeah. So, do you remember what got you into? I know you're interested in lots of other things, and your dad has a telescope, and you're interested in programming and Python and C++. But do you remember what got you interested in space? Did you see a launch, or did you watch one of the SpaceX launches on TV, or hear about an astronaut, or do you remember what really got you interested in space to start?
So first, my dad was really interested in space, and he told me all about it. And then, I just watched some of the videos in it, and I just learned about all the infinite wonders of space. Then I just started really liking it, and yeah.
Yeah. And so about, I think you said something about it in your application about the Hope spacecraft, the air sent around the Martian to study the atmosphere there, right? That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so I know you said you like to play video games too, and have you what is it Scratch? It's actually funny. My wife has because she was a teacher, has done some things with Scratch, but I never did anything with that either. So is that something that you can create games with?
It's basically like coding with blocks. Have you heard of that?
Mm.
Yeah, so say cat says, "What's your name?" Then you put join answer with greeting, then something like that.
And so I guess so. I do have another question too. Again, I thought it was so cool that you got to go to Geneva and Cern. So did you get to see or watch anything, or do you just kind of see the instrument panels and stuff? What do you get to do when you go there?
I learned lots of new cool stuff, but I didn't actually get to see the Large Hadron Collider because I think there was high levels of radiation.
Oh, of course, yeah.
I did get to see the old one.
Right, but the new one's underground.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Really deep.
Yeah. Okay, well, that's good. So have you got to do any other things yet as an ambassador, or is this interview the kind of the first official ambassador thing you've got to do?
This is the first.
Okay, well, see, this was pretty easy, right? I hope you get to do some more interviews. You know, I talked about you asked about other interests or the things I do, and I certainly mentioned theater. That's probably number two. But now I also do a lot of interviews and speeches and presentations. And I love that too, especially with kids. In fact, in about 2 weeks, a teacher friend of mine, she teaches eighth grade, and she set up a discussion that I'm going to do with her eighth grade students. And so I love talking, especially I love talking to grown-ups too. I just talked to an astronomy club last week, and I just talked to a bunch of people in Italy a few days ago. In fact, they wanted some people who wanted to hear the presentation didn't speak English, so we used a translator. You know, so I would say something, and then I would stop, and then the translator would translate it into Italian, and then so every time I was talking, I had to just talk for a short time, so that the translator could remember what I said and translate it into Italian. But we spent 2 hours just doing questions and answers with some adults in Italy. But I really love talking to kids about NASA and space.
Okay. Anyway, thank you for your time. It's been a great pleasure interviewing you.
It's my pleasure, Myle. Thank you so much for doing this.